Welcome to the deep dive. We're looking at some sources you shared about Fivetran, specifically what happens when you really start scaling its use.
Yeah, it's a common journey, right?
Totally. You might have started out, found it super easy, connecting Salesforce, Google Analytics, whatever. Pretty smooth.
Plug and play, almost.
Exactly. But now maybe it's growing, more teams using it, and suddenly it feels, well, more complicated.
That's the core of it. So our mission here is to unpack these sources you sent. We want to understand why scaling Fivetran adds this complexity, what specific problems crop up, and importantly, how the leading teams are actually managing this.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Right. So the sources, they kick off by highlighting the initial ease. Fivetran's designed to be, deceptively easy at the start.
Yeah, you connect a source, point it to your warehouse, data flows, quick win.
A huge win initially.
Yeah.
But that success is what kind of plants the seeds for later complexity. Other teams see the data, they want their sources connected too.
So you add HubSpot, Marketo, NetSuite, maybe database replicas.
Exactly, and the data volumes grow, pipelines multiply. Suddenly you're not managing a few syncs, you're managing dozens, maybe even hundreds, like the sources say.
And that's the point, right? The sources say operational simplicity gives way to performance bottlenecks, soaring costs, and data reliability headaches. That's the crux of the problem.
It is, and the big insight here from the sources is that Fivetran, at scale, it isn't just that plug-and-play tool anymore. It becomes an infrastructure platform.
Infrastructure platform, okay, so like your database or your network needs real management.
Precisely. Proactive management. You can't just set it and forget it.
So what are the specific headaches? The sources mention cost first, that MAR thing, monthly active rows.
Yeah, MAR, monthly active rows. It's basically counting the unique rows that Fivetran inserts or updates in your warehouse each month.
So it's not just volume, it's churn.
Yeah.
Like how often data changes.
Exactly right. Lots of updates on big tables, like customer records changing or new events constantly flowing in. That drives up your MAR. And with many sources doing this, it can spike unexpectedly.
So if you're not watching which tables sync and how often they update, the sources basically say you're likely overspending.
Pretty much. Leaving the meter running.
So what do smart teams do about it, according to these sources? How do they control MA costs?
Well, it takes more deliberate effort. They talk about pruning schemas, so actively choosing only the tables and columns you actually need, not just syncing everything by default.
Makes sense. Less data moving, less MAR.
Right. And tuning sync frequencies. Do you need that data every 5 minutes, or is hourly okay? Or even daily for some things. Less frequency, less MA.
And forecasting costs, too, they mention. Being proactive.
Yeah, modeling it out. Understanding the impact before you add that huge new source. It requires analysis of your pipelines.
Okay, so cost is one big piece. What about performance? Sources mention bottlenecks.
Performance issues pop up in a couple of places. First, on the source side, you can start hitting API limits. Too many Fivetran connectors pulling from Salesforce or NetSuite at once, you know?
Ah, yeah. The source systems themselves have limits.
They do. And that causes syncs to fail or slow down. Then there's the other side. Overloading your destination warehouse.
Dumping too much data in too fast.
You got it. Hundreds of syncs writing data can really strain your warehouse, slow down queries, cause more delays.
And the impact of those delays. The sources say data teams can't trust what they see, and neither can leadership. Stale data kills trust.
Fundamentally breaks the promise, yeah.
Okay, then there's governance, security, consistency, managing configurations for, 80-plus connectors. That sounds intense.
It is. Managing credentials, permissions, settings consistently across all that manually. The sources are pretty blunt. Without governance and automation, your footprint becomes a compliance risk waiting to happen, especially with sensitive data.
A big risk. And the last major challenge, schema drift.
Schema drift. Always fun. Basically, the structure of the source data changes a new column, a renamed field, a different data type.
And Fivetran syncs the change.
And boom! It can break a dozen downstream models, like the sources say. At scale, the chance of some upstream change happening is way higher, and figuring out what broke where becomes a nightmare.
So it's not that Fivetran can't scale, it's that your management of it needs to scale. The sources say it's scalable, but only if your team is too.
That's the absolute key takeaway on the challenge side. The bottleneck shifts from the tool to the team and process.
Which leads us to the solutions. How do leading teams handle this? How do they scale smart?
They shift how they're organized, basically. The sources talk about creating dedicated roles, specifically data platform engineers.
Okay, so not just generalists dipping in. What's their focus?
Their focus is the pipeline's health and efficiency. They monitor sync health, they analyze ML trends to find savings, they troubleshoot cross-system issues, they own the ELT layer.
And they lean heavily on automation, right? Using that metadata API the sources mentioned.
Absolutely crucial. The metadata API gives you programmatic access to data about Fivetran sync statuses, errors, schemas, MAR usage.
So you can build your own monitoring on top of it.
Exactly. Automate alerts for failures, dashboard MAR spend, detect schema changes automatically, catch problems before they snowball, as the sources put it. It moves you from reactive to proactive.
And collaboration seems key too.
Definitely. These platform engineers, they collaborate tightly with analytics engineers and, really importantly, with the source system owners.
To understand upstream changes or troubleshoot together?
Right. It's about bridging those gaps.
Yeah.
And being proactive planning capacity, standardizing configurations, aligning with overall governance, not just waiting for fires.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The sources basically say, in short, they treat Fivetran like the mission-critical system it has become. That's the mindset shift.
That nails it. Fivetran evolves from that simple utility to core infrastructure.
Okay, so summarizing our journey through these sources, Fivetran starts easy, but scale brings real complexity.
Yeah. Unexpected cost jumps from MAR, performance hits from API limits or warehouse load, tricky governance across many connectors, and schema drift breaking things downstream.
And the core message seems to be, the tool scaling isn't enough. You have to scale your team's expertise and your processes right alongside it,
That's the heart of it.
which involves those practical steps. Dedicated roles, using automation like the metadata API, fostering collaboration, planning ahead.
Being deliberate about it.
So what does this all mean? It means you have to start treating Fivetran not just as a connector, but as the critical system it becomes when you rely on it heavily.
So maybe ask yourself, where is your organization on this journey? Is your expertise, your process, keeping pace with how much you're using Fivetran?
Because the final thought these sources leave us with is pretty provocative.
It is. It suggests that growth in data usage, without that matching growth in expertise and process, isn't just inefficient. It can actually become a major risk. Cost overruns, unreliable data, compliance issues. What might that risk look like in your specific context?
Something definitely worth thinking about. Thanks for sharing these sources with us, and thanks for joining this deep dive.